Yep, more anthems on the programme. Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. That was the group Blake. Beautiful. 23 minutes to 9 o'clock it is on this week's Sunday Starts. Now, we reported earlier this month that a small corner of Somerset is going to be at the centre of the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games. The representation of our green and pleasant land will feature a replica Glastonbury Tor and festival. Now, a lot's been written about the Somerset town and the role that it's played in the early life of Jesus Christ. One of the books which explores the evidence that Jesus visited the British Isles in his teens is called The Missing Years of Jesus. It's been written by archaeologist and classical scholar Dennis Price, who I'm very pleased to say joins me on the line this morning. Dennis, good morning.
Good morning to you, Trevor.
How much of this story and also the involvement of the Olympic Games, I suppose, is based on myth? Sorry.
No, that's fine. Well, the earliest church records that I'm aware of go back to the 6th century, where, well, actually, it was William of Malmesbury in the 12th century wrote that St. David had a vision of Jesus telling him that he built a church himself. And in the 6th century, before that, Gildas wrote that the precepts of Christ, whatever precisely they may be, were known in Britain just after the reign of Tiberius. So those are the church records, but the myths or legends, as you call them, have been around possibly for longer than that. I can't say, because they were only recorded in the latter part of the last century by various folklorists and priests in the area who had an interest in the matter.
I see. So was it a bit of wishful thinking then, or wishful hope, that Jesus did actually come to Glastonbury?
Well, I personally don't think so. I mean, it's a lovely idea. But,
yeah, quite.
But, you know, when I started looking into it, I thought it was nothing more than a fairy tale or wishful thinking. But the more I looked into it, I was just astonished at the more evidence that there was for it.
So you reckon, you know, that this was a possibility, and that it is not such a daft idea?
Well, no, I don't think so at all. I mean, you know, I don't have any vested interest in the matter other than the idea came to my attention. And when it fully dawned on me that, you know, this was the most famous person who's ever lived, and that he was missing for over half his life, 18 years from the age of 12 to 30, I looked into it as much as I could, and the more I found, the more it seems to me a near certainty that he was here.
And the fact is that we're talking, you know, between where Jesus was born, where he was brought up, is what, 2,000 miles away, something like that. The fact is he then settled on Glastonbury. What was the thinking about him coming particularly to the town?
Well, I can't say what his thinking was, if indeed he did come along, but we do know that Glastonbury had been a place of great interest to the ancient Britons long before he was said to have turned up. But there are other aspects, such as the fact that, you know, throughout his life he was said to have fulfilled various prophecies, and there were other prophecies in the Bible that said that the Messiah would be a person who dealt in gold and silver. I can't remember the precise way that it phrases it, but we know that in the Mendips there were prehistoric mines there for silver long before Jesus was born. So it's not just that, but there are just a whole host of things that point towards him having come along there, as well as the legends. I mean, I looked into the legends as best I could, and I was amazed at how many of them there were. And not only were there a great many of them, but it was the fact that they seemed to be so straightforward. There were no tales of miracles and conversions that you might expect if they had been invented later. They were all very straightforward. The ones speaking about him coming to Cornwall specified him coming ashore for water, as you might expect if he'd accompanied others on a voyage from the Mediterranean. And the ones in Somerset speak of him working in the mines there. So to me, they just have the ring of truth. They're unembellished.
And likewise with Joseph of Arimathea and the Glastonbury Tor?
What do you mean?
Well, the fact is that we had that as well.
Oh, yes.
Is that as factual as we can get it? That actually happened as well? He actually arrived?
Well, most of the stories, well, in fact, all of them that I'm aware of, feature Joseph of Arimathea. So they speak of him coming to Britain with Jesus, sometimes as a baby, sometimes in the company of his mother Mary as well. But most often the stories speak of him as a young man. So yes, Joseph of Arimathea features very prominently in all these stories.
And is there any connection here, because we constantly hear this phrase about the ley lines of Glastonbury, it is the centre of those, as it were. Again, is that factual, do we know, or are ley lines real or not?
Well, I'm inclined to believe that a lot of ley lines are real, but I have to say it is not my subject at all.
Right, okay.
You know, they may well exist, they may play some part in it, but I just couldn't comment on that. That's not something that I explored.
But do you think then, because as I said, the Olympic Games is featuring Glastonbury as part of that opening ceremony, so we are informed anyway. Do you think it's earned its place in that opening ceremony?
Well, I would say with the possible exceptions of Stonehenge or perhaps Tintagel Castle, that Glastonbury has just got to be one of the most magical places in Britain. I think it's, an inspired choice and probably the only choice. Yes.
Because you can't escape its importance. It's certainly in the, can we use the word, cultural aspect of this country, can you really?
Well, no, indeed not. And I was invited along to meet the Bolivian ambassador who's travelling to Britain at the moment, along with a delegation of priests from the indigenous peoples over there. And they have just recently visited Glastonbury because they were so interested in the place. It has obviously a Christian appeal, but there's the pagan appeal as well. And there's the appeal of King Arthur. Whether or not he was a Christian or a pagan, I don't know. But it certainly is a magical place.
We don't have the festival this year, but I believe we have the Fringe, of course. But are you a part of that at all?
No, I'm not. I've never managed to make it along there. I'm just intensely interested in the stories, and I visit the town every now and again when I can.
Your book, which was published a couple of years ago now. What's the title of that?
It's called The Missing Years of Jesus, with the subtitle The Greatest Story Never Told. And
in which you're looking at what you've been telling us about, all the aspects that you found about that story.
Well, yes, and I just have to say again, for the benefit of anyone who's interested in it, that there's just such a surprising amount of what I think is admissible evidence. In the first place, I thought it was interesting, but I looked into it for months and I couldn't get anywhere. And then, once I'd found one thing, I was surprised at how much came along. And since the book's publication, new information has continued to come in, so it constantly interests me.
I can see why. Dennis, thank you very much indeed. It's very kind of you to join us this Sunday morning.
It's my pleasure, Trevor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Dennis Price, author from Glastonbury, and talking about that wonderful story. As I say, the more you hear about it, it's like lots of things in life, isn't it? The more you delve into things which don't seem obvious in the first place, suddenly become sort of fascinating. It sort of drags you into it. Tremendous stuff. Anyway.